Welcome to our Cybersafe Digest weekly podcast, episode 27. Each week, we will unfold the most recent cyber attacks and will provide you with valuable insights on how to shield your business from these threats, along with practical steps and tips to enhance your cybersecurity.
Hello everybody, welcome to Cybersafe Digest, episode 27, Making Every Penny Count. It's about IT budgeting, and I am Martin Roberts, Managing Director of Neuways. I'm here with my colleague,
Toby Stevenson, Chief Technology Officer at Neuways.
Hi Toby, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Jolly good. Right, you're probably going to, this will be a change for everybody, because I'm probably going to talk more than you, because our different areas of expertise, I suppose.
Yes, indeed.
IT budgeting. As this podcast, as we've often said, is aimed at people who are responsible for IT, but don't necessarily run IT at a technical level. If you're a CFO, CEO, you'll be, one of the big things that you face every year is working out how much it's going to cost you and trying to predict how much it's going to cost you. And, you know, we spend a lot of time, don't we, Toby, looking at different solutions to people and working out that cost. And I think it's probably true to say that some of that budgeting is relatively easy. You know how much you're going to be spending on your IT services provider, your MSP. But then there's the unexpected. There's an event either that happens to you or the supply chain partner, and it makes you review your security, and you may end up spending some more money than it's unbudgeted. I guess what I've said this before, that I find it mildly infuriating. In fact, I'm really angry about it, that when I first started in this industry, budgeting was about spending money on stuff that you had to do business, and then you would have a budget for maximising the use of that stuff or new projects to use IT in an effective way. And that's changed significantly over the last few years, simply because of the cyber landscape, cyber threat landscape. You now have to spend money protecting yourself, which you would have normally spent on making things better. And it's really, it annoys me, it saddens me, but it can't be ignored. And I suppose, Toby, your job has changed significantly over the last 20 years.
Definitely.
Describe what it was like 10 years ago, about what your day-to-day work was and what it is.
It's kind of as you say, back in the day, before we were in the current, landscape as it is now, it was very much about, keeping the lights on, keeping things running, making them reliable, making them work better, making them work faster. Optimization and reliability were kind of the key focuses of most IT departments and technical people. That was kind of what they did. And as you say, it's kind of in the last 5 to 8 years really where cybersecurity has become a really core component of that, which I'm not saying dilutes, but it definitely distracts from what those original core objectives were.
Yeah. And ultimately, the reality is that budgets used to form really be made up of two things. One was the stuff you need to do business today, and then there was a budget which is discretionary spend, ultimately, about stuff you'd like to do. Now you've probably got three elements of a budget, which is, the first two, but the price has changed. So first one is, what do you need to spend to keep the lights on, to do what you're doing today, to do your business? The next big piece is, how do you maintain security and improve security and keep yourself cyber safe? And then finally, that discretionary spend, you need to budget to make things better. So that's, lights on, keep safe, do better. And these need to be thought of in different ways. So when you're speaking to your IT department or your IT provider, getting a budget for keeping those lights on should be relatively simple. It'll be made up of typically subscriptions paid monthly, plus your service fee. It may include some CapEx for replacement of hardware, servers and things like that. Then we get into the keeping safe. Again, what do you need to do to improve your business? One big thing recently, not a big thing, I think it's coming up on tours, is the increasing desire of businesses or the increasing need for businesses to get accreditation along the lines of Cyber Essentials and Cyber Essentials Plus. That can incur a cost not only in getting Cyber Essentials. If just to do Cyber Essentials accreditation, Toby, what's that what ballpark are you talking if everything's great?
Yeah, so if there's no remediation work required, the certification fee is about £600. Yeah. So it's something like that. It's kind of like tip of the iceberg in most cases because there's some fettling that's required to get, and that amount of fettling obviously depends on what your current position looks like. But yeah, it can be a relatively low figure, recurring annually because it's a recurring certification, so you need to be certified every year. But yeah, that's the sort of number you're looking at.
Yeah, but the truth is that I love the word fettling. Thank you very much for bringing that into our podcast. So yeah, fettling might be a little bit of remediation, updating some software, but it might be actually subscribing to new software monthly to keep you in a position so you can achieve Cyber Essentials or Cyber Essentials Plus. So that will increase your IT budget. It's worthwhile, I think, by the way, having sat at board level over the years, is trying to, rather than lumping all these values into one budget, try to break those out into the three, into the keeping the lights on, making us safe, and improving the business. Keep those separate because some of those budgets need to be ring-fenced. You can't choose to do certain things. You just have to do them.
You don't want to get in a position where you can't replace a server or some PCs because you've had to make a spend on a cybersecurity incident or something like that because you're robbing people to pay Paul, then aren't you, if you don't care?
Yeah. So, that's the advice I would give. So, let's talk about essentials. If you're doing your IT budget, we'll talk about keeping the lights on. Yeah, server replacements, laptop replacements, that's CapEx. More than likely, we've got the licenses that you're paying for Office 365 and things like that.
Network infrastructure. I mean, that's an area that often gets overlooked. Yeah, this is the core of the network, and it's not uncommon for organisations to running equipment that is 10 or more years old.
Absolutely,
it's the equipment that's stitching everything together and keeping it all working. And actually, it's paid the least amount of credit of anything on the network because it's invisible.
Yeah. And getting to the bottom of all this and understanding it all and put it in your budget for the next 12 months or the next 36 months is going to be a challenge in itself. Your MSP, your managed service provider, if you use one, can help you there. To give you, when you need to spend the money, when renewals are due, on warranties and things like that. And then we'll move on to the keeping safe budget. You don't know what you don't know. And sitting down prior to good time before your budget time with your provider, with your IT department, with your head of IT, and saying, okay, what should we do this year to protect ourselves? Thinking, and also, are we going to go down the accreditation route? Is worthwhile having some time before your budgeting process starts, or as part of your budgeting process, because the numbers might become a bit eye-watering. They can be quite a surprise. I mean, we used to talk about a minimum requirement, really, to be in business. And, that would be having servers, having kit, having networking equipment. From a security point of view, Toby, what would you, if you were starting a business today, what would you not do without on day one?
Yeah, I mean, things like advanced endpoint software. So we spoke about this before. Your antivirus doesn't really cut it anymore. You need to be starting out with an EDR tool that's just going to give you that visibility and that extra protection that an antivirus can't give. Yeah. You need to make sure that your incoming emails are well scanned and sanitized, so to help keep out viruses, malware, phishing links, that kind of stuff. Yeah. You need to make sure that we look after that identity plane, so things like MFA, making sure that's in place and that we can monitor what those logs from that login process are showing. They're the big security ticket items, I think. They're the frontiers that we fight on, that we defend. It's the endpoint, it's a collaboration, and it's identity.
Now, folks, if there were some acronyms there which you picked up or heard, and you want to go and find out a bit more about them, do go and look at our cybersafe.co.uk website, where you'll see previous episodes advertised. and you'll see where we discuss these different things. But thank you very much, Toby. So you have to budget for those things these days. They're not elective. You need to really include these in. And then of course, there's also, if you're doing projects and you're planning a big project, whether it's an ERP implementation or you may be doing a new site and IT for that, you'll always include a contingency. Sometimes it's 10% or a number of your choosing. One thing I would say is for your IT security budget, potentially maybe put a contingency in. Yeah, take your overall budget for IT security and add a contingency. If you don't spend it, wonderful. It's always good to go back to the board to say, yeah, I underspent this year. Or you can have that last minute rush of spending it all before it all disappears. Alternatively, having a contingency in place to say, I don't know what's going to happen, but there will be new threats emerging. We may have to invest in some new software, some new solutions. May well be worthwhile considering. Because
that's actually a point around that. Actually, well, I've spoken with two companies this week who've had, let's call them near misses, and they've had to put their hand in their pocket to close some of those gaps out of cycle. They weren't expecting to do that, so that's kind of where that contingency comes in. These things can come and blindside you, and you need to spend X, Y, and Z to keep yourself safe.
I think it's a really good point, and that contingency element of that, it would actually be a bit of cover for you, because nobody likes to go to the board, to go to anybody and say, hey, I need to spend this money. And we're not talking small sums here. We can be talking hundreds and thousands of pounds a month. Annually, we can be talking 40, 50,000 pounds quite easily just to put a good solution in. And let's face it, you want a good solution if a new threat emerges. And we've got these threats emerging all the time, and the speed of that. You can talk about this at length, Toby, about the nature is changing and the speed is changing simply because of new threats like AI or threats enabled by AI.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's so many things that are changing and new ways of trying to get people. But even that's kind of one side. But there's also the old things. There's some recycled old-fashioned threats, when we spoke about on a previous podcast, where USB sticks are being used to try and spread malware again. And, that's like a thing from years and years ago. And that was kind of like seen really as cliche and blasé. But now it's a thing because maybe it's a new generation of IT user, and they've not experienced the one that happened where it happened a decade or so ago. So there's so many different things going on, and it's that eternal constant vigilance and that ability to react and be flexible that is really, really important. And if you don't have a war chest that you can dive into to satisfy those needs, it can leave you exposed, it can leave you wanting and unduly increase the risk to the business.
Okay, so you're either, as a CEO, CFO, person responsible for IT, you'll go through this process once a year, I'm sure, budgeting for the next couple of years, the next year certainly, and the next couple of years possibly. Our advice to you is to certainly start that process early. Keep abreast of the security landscape. Again, cybersafe.co.uk is there as a reference, as a resource for you. Take a listen to some other podcasts where we'll talk about in depth about certain threats and remediations, budget early and budget sensibly. I won't say generously, but certainly don't understate what it may well be.
It's obviously one of the questions that comes up a lot is, well, okay, I need a budget. What is it? And
yes,
it's really hard to pin something on that.
Yeah.
But I did hear one piece of advice a while ago, and I can't remember exactly where I picked it up from, but the statement was, allocate 2% of turnover for cybersecurity to protect the remaining 98% of your turnover.
I think that's quite a good measure. I mean, I wrote something some years ago now about overall IT spend, and it depends on the type of business that you are. Less so for cybersecurity, but we have several ways to describe a business in terms of their attitude to spending money and their investments in IT. So we have We have bleeding edge, people who want to use the latest technologies or the emerging technologies, and they should be they'll be spending huge amounts of money on IT budgeting. There's leading edge, people who like to use the latest solutions, proven latest solutions, but be early adopters of those. There are people who are Me Too, which is generally most people. They should be spending between overall IT budget of their turnover, 3 to 5%. And we have laggards, people who spend the money at the last possible moment, and then we've got super laggards who basically don't spend the money at all if they can and wait till things go wrong. And some people get away with it. It depends on your industry that you're in. If you're in a super competitive industry where IT is a differentiator, then you'll be in those early descriptions there, leading edge and bleeding edge. Generally, you should really sit in the Me Too, use the latest available proven technology, and then people who are in industries where technology won't be much of a differentiator that helps them do the job. Laggard it can be absolutely fine. But you're talking a spend of your turnover on IT of somewhere between 0.5% up to the tens, if you also wish for the bleeding edge. But that's a really good piece of advice. Take the overall IT budget for keeping the lights on stuff and add 2%. Put 2% aside, of your turnover to spend on cyber. If you don't spend it, great news. Toby, thank you very much for that. We're going to segue now into, that's not really segueing, it's just I want to say the word, into our acronym of the week, which is SEG. S-E-G.
Yes. So Secure Email Gateway. So this is essentially normally a cloud service that you would have all your email routed into before it came to your on-premise environment or your 365 environment. And this is the platform that makes sure that you don't get any viruses sent to you by email, and it helps check all the links and helps stop the phishing and spam and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, Secure Email Gateway, it's a very discreet way of handling email messages as they come in and out. The alternative is that you have one that is an API-based system. So, for example, if you use the including Microsoft 365, that is an API-based solution. It doesn't have a separate system. So, a secure email gateway, the email hits that gateway and then it bounces into your email system. Yep. So that's why it's a gateway. It's a separate. It's like the porch to your email system. It has to bypass the front door and all that thing before it can get inside.
Okay. And typical. Well, let's try this one. See if it works. Name two that you consider if you were.
So Mimecast is a very popular one. That's the one that we tend to recommend. Yeah. It's been around for a long time. Has a good track record. Another great example would be Proofpoint. Again, another big name in the space. Yeah. Both are very good solutions. So they are kind of the two of the household names in that space.
And the peculiar thing about this is a really good solution in this space will sometimes, occasionally from customers prompt the question, well, why am I paying for this? It doesn't seem to do anything for me. But
I've been on a call before and a customer said, why are we paying for this Mimecast thing? Because we never get any spam. Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of why you're not getting any spam.
Yeah, it works.
Exactly. So to combat that, we produce a series of proof of value reports, basically to show what it is doing, because it's conspicuous by its absence. You don't see it doing a lot, but actually, when you see the stats, it's filtering out X, Y, and Z. It's quite enlightening.
Okay, thank you very much. That's acronym of the week, SEG, S-E-G, and I tried to clumsily use the.
I liked it. I'll see if I could. There was a way I could incorporate way into SEG, so it kind of.
Well, yeah. I think on listening back, I shall probably want to go and slap myself because it was such a bad way to segue into it.
It was a dad joke.
Yeah, my lads will appreciate it. Everyone, thank you very much for listening. Again, I'll mention the resource to go see. Hopefully you were there already on cybersafe.co.uk. Lots of stuff, lots of our previous podcasts you can look at. And Toby, thank you very much. Next time we'll be reporting, I think, remotely. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
We'll tell you all about it next time, folks. Thank you very much for listening. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, everyone. We've reached the end of episode 27 of our Cybersafe Digest weekly podcast. Thank you very much for listening, and to make sure you don't miss out on our future episodes, hit that subscribe button on Spotify, Apple, or Google Podcast. For more cybersecurity wisdom and resources, head over to our website at cybersafe.co.uk. See you next Thursday.